This is David Howard for Vader TV, and we're back with Peter Newton, an organizational psychologist who has published his 5th book, Law Firm Psychology. Welcome back to Vader TV, Peter.
Thank you.
Now, we talked a little bit last time about leadership and delegation, and I know your book is about law firms, but the types of topics extend to startups and the corporate world.
Yeah.
And one of the things you talk about is boardroom and how management and executives can deal with their boardroom. Can you share some insights on that?
Well, you know, a board of directors, just like the company that it oversees, needs good leadership and appropriate structure also. Otherwise, it becomes, it can't do much and can itself become a source of disorganization with sort of random interventions and what might be called meddling in the operations of the company. I got a call the other day from the CFO of an investment brokerage firm that I consulted with boards, and he had a question. The question was, they had an open seat on their board, someone had left it, and they want to know what the criteria were for filling it. I said, well, how did you get the original group? He said, well, there were 18 owners, and so they all became the board. So now, and no one had ever left. So they'd never had to face the question of who ought to be on the board. Now they did. I told them that the only appropriate criteria for board membership was competence to perform a role on the board, and those roles had to be derived from the nature of the primary task of the board. What is the board for? What is it supposed to do? Well, they've never talked about it. And so this seemingly innocent question of what are the criteria for a board membership gets you quickly into matters of what the primary task of the board is, and then what its structure needs to be. The question can only be answered rationally in terms of the goal being pursued. So that project turned out to be a little more complicated than he had hoped, but he understood what I was talking about as soon as I raised these questions with him.
Sure, and 18 people on a board, that seems like a lot.
It's too. It is, depending on what it's supposed to do.
Sure.
If it's just to share information and ratify proposals made by smaller subgroups, 18 is okay. But if it's supposed to be more of a work group and take on complex decision making, say about policy or issues of oversight, then it's pretty large.
And is there any insight you could give to young entrepreneurs and executives who are maybe faced with dealing with a board of directors for the first time, whether it be a small board or a large board? They have to do that interaction.
Well, what turns out to be critical is the relationship between the number one person in the company, whether you call him the CEO or president, and the chairman of the board. That relationship, because the board has got to be engaged in oversight, I think. And a key part of the oversight is the oversight of the monitoring of the performance of the CEO. Where that relationship is good, it can provide, can be a tremendous source of strength to the CEO. Where it isn't, it sets the two groups at odds and creates a hostile or adversarial relationship, which makes the running of the company more complicated and difficult. So that relationship between chairman of the board and CEO of the company really needs attention and work and careful management.
That sounds like some pretty good advice, Peter. I want to thank you for coming back to Vader and talking with us again.
You are welcome.